live and up to date on what's happening outside, as we are your only live and local program on this morning. We've had quite a few traffic accidents this morning, and very luckily we have attorney Kim Baer in with us, and we're kind of talking on this subject this morning because if you happen to get in an accident, we hope you don't, but it does happen, there's some things you should know when it comes to the legality of dealing with an attorney.
Absolutely, and actually some of my tips I'm going to give you today, or give the viewers today, have to do with things that they can do if they want to represent themselves or try to represent themselves. But
do you recommend that when it comes to a traffic accident?
If you haven't really been hurt, maybe you've just gone to the doctor once or twice, then it might be worth trying to handle it yourself, because then you're not paying an attorney. You're going to put more money in your pocket. So it just kind of depends. If you've really been hurt, then yeah, you probably do want to hire an attorney.
And what we're talking about, so you've had a car accident. These are the things you need to do first before anything moves. And your first tip I think is great. Why don't you tell us about what happens right after an accident, what people should be doing? Right.
So right after the accident, before you move your car,
big part of this.
Big part of it. Get out and take a photo of where the cars are and the damage. Because what happens is a lot of times if you're on a busy street, or the person who caused the accident might say, hey, let's get the cars, let's move them. And sometimes they don't have the best reasons for doing that.
Sure.
And so if you don't have photos of exactly how the car accident happened and you move off the road and then the police show up, sometimes you'll be surprised that the story might change. And you have absolutely no proof of exactly how it occurred. I've got one of those cases in my office right now where now it's a he said, she said, and who was where and who was merging and who wasn't merging.
And you're talking about physical evidence. If a car is screeching, you've got the little tracks on the road and all that sort of thing. So you want to take the photos where they were to prove how they got there.
Exactly.
Now, what if you are in a busy street? We've seen a couple accidents on I-235 this morning. How do we handle that situation of taking pictures?
Well, obviously, I don't want people to put their life in jeopardy to get, but if you can get out and just snap a couple photos, because typically when you're in a car accident, you're going to jump out first, usually to go talk to the person, and then that might be when you're going to agree that you're going to move the cars. But just grab your phone. Almost all of us have.
I was going to say, it's so easy to do that these days.
It is so easy to do that. The other thing, if it is a dangerous situation and it doesn't make sense to get out of the car, hopefully someone who's seen the accident is going to pull over with you and make sure you get their information. Because the other thing that we're seeing is, let's say it's this morning, it's rush hour traffic, and the witness who saw the accident is late for work.
Right.
Sure.
Guess what? They're not going to stick around. They might pull over, make sure you're okay, and then they're not going to stick around to talk to the police.
And what it sounds like you're talking about, it's really on you. It's your responsibility. And the odds of you getting in an accident, big or small, are fairly common. You're probably going to have something. So it's on you. You know what? I have to do this. And if the other driver, if they smashed into you, they potentially could be saying, you know what? Let's not do this. You should already be taking pictures, is what you're saying.
You should. Better safe than sorry. You'd like to think that everybody does the right thing, and in most cases, everybody does do the right thing. And someone will say, yeah, no, I rear-ended them, and it was my fault. But just in case the story changes, or just in case there's some confusion, and then obviously once you get pulled over, so make sure any witnesses just get their name, get their phone number, so in case they decide they're not going to stick around.
Would you suggest, okay, if here's the accident, would you suggest literally walking, if you can, for safety reasons, all the way around the vehicle taking photos?
The more photos, the better. Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you can do that, if you're on a side street or something, and it's a matter of somebody ran a stop sign or something like that, then absolutely take as many photos as you can. And then we've talked about this before. Call the police.
I was going to ask you that. I mean, before we get to that, I should mention, obviously there's cameras everywhere now. In this accident this morning, for instance, there's going to be archived, maybe video, and certainly photos of that.
Yes.
But there's also, a friend of mine was just in a wreck, and that same video, there was a gap of the 2 seconds, and they showed, we have the tape, and what do you know, the car was here, all of a sudden it was there. That gap is no longer, there's nothing to do.
So don't rely on that. Make sure you get your own evidence.
It should have been there, it's no problem, we'll just go into DOT, and there was a gap.
Well, and in some situations, the camera's on a loop. And so you only have a certain amount of time to go get that video. And so if you go and you're treating and maybe it's been a couple months and now you're working on the claim and now you're first consulting an attorney, sometimes we've had trouble getting the video. So
other tips you got?
The other tips I have is, okay, so let's say that you've got property damage.
Okay.
One of the first things that you're going to want to do is go and get an estimate. If the car's not totaled, go get an estimate. And most insurance companies will let you go to your local mechanic or somebody that you trust and get an estimate. They may not agree to use that person, but at least that way then you've got an estimate from somebody you trust. If the car is totaled, then you need to be, again, you need to be a little proactive, and you need to get on Blue Book and the NADA site and look up the value of your car. And you'd be surprised. You have to be really careful when you're entering the information. You want to put in the make, the model, the year, but then you also want to make sure that you add what's the mileage. Does it have a sunroof? Does it have heated seats? All those options, because people a lot of times will say, oh, they just punch it in and they pull something up and then they say, that's all my car's worth. And if when they call us and we'll say, well, did you put in this? Did you put in that? Did you? I mean, sometimes that can make the difference of a couple $1,000s.
Well, because what you're talking about is the insurance companies don't necessarily have your best interests in mind as far as paying every dollar they can for the car. So again, back to the same point, it's on you. It's the driver's responsibility.
It is on you. And then here's another tip that you might not think about. So let's say that you did do your research and you've looked on the Blue Book and you have a pretty good idea of what your car's worth. First of all, make sure you're looking at private sale values, not trade-in values, because trade-in values are going to be lower. Yeah. And then let the insurance company adjuster make you the first offer. We've had cases before where we've told the client, oh, looks like maybe $10,000 is about what your car's going to be worth, and the first offer out of the chute was 11.2 or something like that. Well, then, and usually the first offer is not the last offer for property damage. So had my client made the first offer, they would have said, $10,000. This is what I saw in Blue Book. Well, the insurance company would have said, done deal. Right. So, and then we've talked about this before. Remember that anything that's damaged in the car is also included. So if your iPhone gets broken, you got a computer that goes flying. I mean, any of that personal properties also. Do you need images covered.
Of that as well to prove what you had in your vehicle?
If you can, yeah, absolutely, of how it's damaged.
Unless the camera phone got broken, then
yes. And so then the next thing that you want to look at, so now let's say you handled the personal property, the damage to your car. So if you're hurt, make sure you go to the doctor. Saying that you're hurt without going to the doctor is not going to carry any weight with the adjuster.
It actually sounds fraudulent.
It does sound fraudulent. And and unfortunately in the world we live in today, insurance adjusters, a lot of people pull their leg. And so they're the first thing they're going to say is, okay, where's the medical records? And then if you're sent to physical therapy, we tell people all the time, make sure you go. Don't miss an appointment. It's really important. And make sure you finish. Because really, we want to make sure that you're back to normal, that we get you all fixed up. Right. And the only way that you're going to avoid having permanent damage is if you get in and you do your physical therapy and you finish it up.
Well, it's a litigious society in Los Angeles. Boy, everyone was suing everyone left and right. Would you go to the extent of, okay, you're in an accident, and if the other person starts going, and then they're running around, you take pictures of them in action? How far do you go?
Well, okay, so I've been in a car accident where it was my fault. I rear-ended somebody. It happened a few years ago, and it was in a different state where people were much more litigious than they are in Iowa. And, I got out, and I was the first, I took my pictures, I talked to the person, I got my witnesses, and, and then I was truly concerned. Are you okay? Because it was a small fender bender, but I just wanted, are you okay? Yep, you're okay, all right. And I went and got the witness, brought the witness over and said, yeah, so you saw everything. It is my fault. I do have insurance, and you're okay, right? Because then I've got somebody listening. Because now, having said that, I represent people who get in car accidents. Yeah. A lot of times, you're gonna be okay at the scene of the accident.
Right. Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, and that whiplash might not kick in for a couple of days.
Absolutely.
And so that's the reason why. And a lot of people think, well, I'll tough it through. I'm young. I'm whatever. I'll be okay. And so if you start to have some problems, make sure you do go to the doctor. The other thing we're seeing a lot of these days is concussion syndrome, and you can get that from the whiplash. And
Sure.
concussion syndrome can last a year or even longer.
Yes, it can.
So, you know, you can have headaches and dizziness and you know, so you just want to make sure
Trouble
you go to the doctor.
focusing.
And what if
lapse
you
of
do have
memory.
something
Yeah.
permanent and long-lasting? How do you handle that from a legal perspective?
From a legal perspective, and so then that's the other tip. Whether or not you're handling it yourself or whether or not you have an attorney, don't settle until you know, number one, you're done treating, or if it is ongoing, you've got 2 years from the date of the accident to file a claim. And we do have some people who have had concussion syndromes or, you know, God forbid, something even more serious, and we have to file within 2 years, but they continue to treat and we continue to, you know, keep track of all those bills.
There you go. If you have more questions, Attorney Kim Baer, we appreciate you coming
great.
in. How can they contact you?
Yeah, sure. You can call us at 515-INJURED. We're right across the street from Brett's Auditorium.
Some important tips to know, folks. Go see this amazing lady if you need any more information.
Thank
We'll be
you.
right back with more.